was in it. That's why the last chapter was taken. The answer's in the book.
Hello, pie in the sky. Fascinating what one turns up in all the nooks and crannies.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport on the PBS app. Download it today.
You're watching New England Public Media on WGBY Springfield.
Sunday on PBS, it's the season premiere of Miss Scarlet and the Duke on Masterpiece.
I am the only female detective in London.
Followed by the series premiere of Magpie Murders.
It's missing the last chapter. The answer's in the book.
And finally, the series premiere of Annika.
I'm a really good detective.
First, Miss Scarlet and the Duke, followed by Magpie Murders, and finally, Annika, all on Masterpiece.
Watch these new shows Sunday starting at 8 on any PM.
Coming up, we're connecting you with the creativity and culture in your community, including a historic church celebrating its 200th anniversary.
Put a little bit of energy into it. And now everybody in town will wonder what's going on at the church.
A powerful new novel explores themes of race and redemption.
The question is, how does one deal with the indignities, the violence, the stories from our family, and when we pass them on, how clear should we be?
And we'll climb Hawk Mountain in Charlemont for some high-flying fun.
All of a sudden, he was like, "We're halfway there," and I was like, "We're already halfway there?" Like it's crazy. It like flew by, but you're literally flying through the trees. So.
Join us for those stories and more as we explore the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. Up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point, your source for creativity, culture, and community. I'm Saidalis Bauer. Every week, we explore all that Western New England has to offer, and today we're coming to you from the Franklin County town of Charlemont, Massachusetts. Founded in 1765, Charlemont lies along Route 2, better known as the famous Mohawk Trail, where a road trip guarantees spectacular views of the natural beauty of the region, especially in the fall when the air gets crisp and the leaves begin to turn color. An area with history that predates the Revolutionary War, it's also a haven for those who love to explore the outdoors. And you can find stores that cater to adventure seekers in the summer and those who come to ski at Berkshire East in the winter. We'll learn more about some of the outdoor recreation this town is known for a little later in the program. But we begin our program today in the Hampton County town of Blandford. Travel down the main road of any historic New England town and you are bound to see at least one old white church. Not only have they survived more than 300 years of American history, these structures continue to contribute to New England communities in ways that would have astonished their colonial founders. Producer Dave Frazier brings us the story of one such church in Blandford that is celebrating its 200th anniversary.
It's a significant structure for the town. It is the biggest structure, in the town, biggest single structure, and it's atop the hill on North Road there. So when you're up in the steeple, it does give you a nice view looking down into the lower half of the valley, so you can see all the way to Springfield and into Connecticut.
Listed on the National Register of Historic Places, the White Church in Blandford has remained active long into the 20th century. The town was initially referred to as Glasgow Lands due to the European colonists of Scots descent who arrived here in 1735. They sought to erect a church for their congregational form of worship, and in 1822 approached Northampton architect Isaac Damon.
Isaac Damon was born towards Cape Cod. He was born in Weymouth and moved out here to Western Massachusetts in 1811. He was largely a self-taught architect and was most successful in his building of a number of churches in the region. And the church fathers decided to approach him and ask him to do the construction and to do the design.
The meeting house, as it was first known, was the home of the congregational community, though in the ensuing 200 years it became much more.
You have to put a little bit of energy into it. And there it is. And now everybody in town will wonder what's going on at the church.
Chips Norcross is president of the Blandford Historical Society and recently shared some stories of the church and pointed out some of its more interesting characteristics.
Initials on the up on the walls, way above the bell. You have to shimmy up. It's not an easy process to get way up to the top of the steeple. But up there are a few names that are recognizable even today that are kind of fun to look at. Grand Rapids, Michigan, 30th January 1874. He must have been visiting here, and the door opened, and he thought, we'd like to know about Grand Rapids, Michigan.
With no formal heating system, the White Church would become too cold during the winter months, so the congregation sought to build a second church in town.
Now, in town means, I don't even know if it's a quarter mile away, down the hill. It's just not that far. And at that point, the White Church is still used essentially from spring, May-ish, into October, roughly, and then they shift over and go to the other space. In 1940, 1941, as part of the Works Projects Administration work that was done by the Roosevelt administration, there's a team of photographers that goes around to various important places, and this is one of them. And so we have some wonderful photographs that are taken of the church that are in the Library of Congress, and so they document what the church looked like at that point.
Eventually, as the White Church surpassed 150 years in age, time began to catch up with the structure, and a variety of challenges faced the congregation. With the need for massive repairs, the community and the church members came together to begin the process of saving the building. The first of a series of many Scottish festivals would provide much-needed revenue to support the restoration work. In 2006, the congregation sold the White Church to the Blandford Historical Society for $1. This transition supported concentrated efforts to help preserve Blandford's only building in the National Historic Register.
It's the icon of the town of Blandford. It's on the town flag, it's on the town seal, and the town is very, very much attached to it, even if you're not part of the original congregation.
Every week, Connecting Point explores the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England, but it doesn't stop there. You can find us online anytime for exclusive features and content. The White Church in Blandford houses an 1894 Herman Miller grand piano, and this summer, Marcia Ecker, a pianist and teacher based in New York City, performed at the church along with her students as part of a fundraiser to restore the piano. Producer Dave Frazier brings us that story in this week's digital exclusive.
This piano is very beloved of the community. People love it, take care of it. This one was built in 1893. That's 4 years before Johannes Brahms died. It's like putting us in a really different era, the Romantic period, really.
You can find that digital exclusive online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Clark University professor Ousmane Power-Greene has released his debut novel entitled The Confessions of Matthew Stong. The novel explores themes such as race, redemption, societal imbalances, and highlights some history around slavery and racial tension in the South. I spoke with Power-Greene to learn more about his inspiration to write this novel and how it will leave readers reflecting on society.
The historian ultimately must use their imagination when reconstructing the past. You know, we have documents. We know where someone was, for example. When I was writing Confessions of Matthew Stong, I was looking at, history of the Confederacy and looking at the sons of Southern slaveholders after the Civil War and how many of them became involved in this sort of vigilante racist violence. And so you have the confessionals, you have the transcripts, but ultimately their story must bring all this together and create narrative and create a story. And so both history and also writing fiction require one to create a story and bring events together so they have coherence.
I noticed that there's this juxtaposition in the book with it being in the academic Northeast and the microaggressions that exist in that environment.
Yep.
And then you have the South, particularly Alabama, that has the deep roots in white supremacy. Is that something that you can relate to? Was it intentional to create these two settings?
So when I, began to imagine this character, Allie Douglas, and I knew that I wanted her to be a philosopher. I knew I wanted her to be a person that makes her living, this Black woman, with ideas. I imagined these sort of experience and thought about what, I'm a professor, obviously. And so I'm aware on some level of the sorts of, issues and challenges we face at universities. And so I sort of used that and brought that together and imagine, the sorts of microaggressions, maybe you could say, or just the arrogance and the stereotypes, the ways that, some people particularly maybe who are white, really have never interacted, particularly in the Northeast, where we have even less sort of professional Black intellectuals, with a woman like Allie Douglas. So that inspired the sort of ideas, the details, how it's framed. For me is something that's very real, and all African-American academics, academics who are people of color broadly, endure a catalog of slights on the regular. And so those are some of the ones I decided to pull out.
The other thing that stood out to me was that the protagonist, Allie Douglas, you as an author and as a man decided to write from a woman's perspective. What was the purpose of you wanting to write from this viewpoint?
My publisher asked me this question, and she had thought it was something really very deep in terms of my own, imagination. But really, I modeled the character of Angela Davis, actually. And so it was, for me, like many people, Angela Davis is a hero of mine, a person who I, respect tremendously, and I, teach her work. And so I wanted her to be the heroine. I imagined she's the first person that came to mind. And then just drawing off of the great literary tradition, the fantastic Black women writers who I love, the contemporary ones like Edwidge Downicott, for example, and just, trying to find that voice the best I can. And knowing the entire time that whether I succeeded would be, of course, the great challenge that, all my readers, particularly my women readers, will know. And I had a team, obviously, of people too who read it and saved me some embarrassing mistakes and things I said from day one. So
I think that's why it stood out to me, because as I was reading it, for some reason, I was like, wait a minute, this is Ousmane writing this. And I felt like it was a woman, so I think you did a really good job writing from that perspective. But I also want to talk about something else, because you shared a piece with me that you wrote that gave a little bit of context to this story. And in it, you talk about your grandfather who was nearly lynched and some of the confusion that you felt behind finding out about that story so late in life. Yet you were traveling to the South with your daughter and hesitant to tell her about your uneasiness of being in that location, and you didn't want to pass that fear down to her. So how do we have these types of important and heavy conversations without inciting fear or passing down trauma? Is it possible? Is it inevitable? How do you go about it?
This has been the central dilemma, particularly for people like me who were born after the Civil Rights Movement. The question is, how does one deal with the indignities, the violence, the stories from our family, and when we pass them on, how clear should we be? Of course, this is central to the novel, right? Allie Douglas, my main character, is confronting her own mother's death and the stories around what happened, and there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of haunting, intergenerational haunting. That stays with us. And I feel the same way. I mean, I was an adult when my grandfather told me this sort of horrific story, about my great-grandfather that he never told me. This is, a part of our experiences as Black people in this country. It's things that they're going to find out and know. And so we must have the tough conversations. And I think as parents and as adults, we have an opportunity to create the framework for the conversations, right? It's our opportunity because, you know, as kids, as young people come of age, we know they're going to be exposed to these things.
We're coming to you today from Route 2 in the foothills of the Berkshire Mountains, an area cherished by leaf peepers in the fall, skiers in the winter, and those who love to explore all that the nearby Deerfield River has to offer. And there's one local business in particular that caters to those who find their thrills in the wild. Since 1985, outdoor adventure seekers traveling along the Mohawk Trail have found their oasis at the Zoar Outdoor Adventure Resort in Charlemont. While rafting and kayaking are two of their most popular attractions, they also feature zipline canopy tours. Connecting Point's Brian Sullivan traveled up Hawk Mountain to witness some high-flying adventure in this next story.
For most, the idea of screaming in the woods, only to be too far away to be heard by anyone in the outside world, is a terrifying proposition. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, like when cruising along a cable from tree to tree, traveling at speeds not normally achieved without a jetpack. The purveyors of this fast-paced festivity are the folks at Zoar Outdoor Adventure Resort, a staple here in Charlemont, Massachusetts since 1985. And ziplining is one of their most popular attractions. But before anyone just starts zipping on those lines, attendees go through some training first.
You come into our zip base right here, you go through, signing your waiver, getting ready to go, and then we gear you up. We take you through ground school, which is where you learn all the fundamentals of ziplining. Then we drive you up to the top of the course in our ATVs. So it's about a 5 to 7 minute ride to the top. You climb about 500 feet of vertical. And then we take you through the course. It's about 3 hours round trip by the time you get geared up and coming back to our base here. You go through 11 zip lines, 3 assisted lowers, and 2 sky bridges.
And if the way she just summarized a 3-hour experience in 30 seconds seems fast, it feels even faster out on the course.
All of a sudden, he was like, we're halfway there. We're going through 11 of them. And I was like, we're already halfway there? Like, it's crazy. It like flew by, but you're literally flying through the trees, so.
When we dropped by, we were joined by members of the freshman class from Wentworth Institute in Boston. But it wasn't the entire freshman class, just the lucky ones who happened to check their inboxes at the right time.
I just was scrolling through my email one day, and all of a sudden I got an email saying, hey, like, we have free orientation activities that you want to do, and there was like a gaming one and like a craft one, and then one said adventure, and I was like, I'm up for a good adventure, so I signed up, and here I am.
While fun, excitement, and adventure may top the list of expectations for the visitors, for the staff at Zoar Outdoor, priorities 1 through 10 are safety and more safety. And it only makes sense, considering the massive heights and zip lines that can sometimes reach over 600 feet. This means the guides go through 40 hours of top-to-bottom training first before they can take a group out into the woods.
We really focus on making sure that the guests are secure and managing the guests and keeping them in a really good spot. One of our sayings is 100% clips 100% of the time, so making sure that the guests are always clipped into the trees or to the zipline or both.
I think the guides make it clear that they know what they're doing, and it's not very much that we actually have to do, mostly just enjoy the ride.
Seeing how easy these youngsters made it all look, we figured this guy would give it a shot too. Thanks to some help from my guide Curtis, I was all geared up, just not for the actual course.
Right now, Curtis is setting me up here at ground school because safety here is paramount, and it would have been way too dangerous for me to bring the camera back into the actual zip line course. So we'll try our luck right now.
All right,
go for it.
Step down to the edge.
All right, let's have some fun.
Oh, that was definitely not winning any points for a graceful execution, but I'm not ruling out coming back and trying it again. And that's a sentiment I believe was shared by everyone in the group that I followed that day.
I don't think they could have done anything differently. I think they did great. They made me feel very comfortable, very safe, explaining everything perfectly. They were great.
And you can learn more about what draws people to Western Massachusetts in this week's Digital Extra.
Oh, I decided to come out to Western Massachusetts as a conservation corps that I found out about through my college that was in the state forest. That's just the next town over. And then I knew about Zoar actually from a book that I found in Michigan and decided that I wanted to work for this company before I even came out here and thought that would be an awesome place to be.
You can find that digital extra on our website at nepm.org/connectingpoint right now. While growing up in the Bahamas, Mychal Connolly started his first business selling candy to friends at just 9 years old. As he made his way to the United States, that entrepreneurial spirit followed him, and he has gone on to successfully launch several ventures, with the most recent being his mobile digital billboard business, Stand Out Truck. I spoke with Connelly to hear more about his story and the importance of being involved in the community.
We had 2 sons, and they're 18 months apart. So when my second son was born, everyone wanted to buy him all the, new crib and playpen. I was like, no, we just please just give us diapers. And then I realized like diaper giving is like everyone needs diapers, but like gift giving is a 2-way street. So like people receiving the diapers would be really happy, but the person giving the diapers like, yeah, okay. So like once I identified that problem, I was like, man, we got to find a way to solve that. And that's really what any good entrepreneur and coming up with ideas to turn them into revenue, it's that piece, right? And that may not be like a wow answer, but that's really what it is, like identifying a problem and then figuring out like a solution that people will be willing to pay for to solve that problem. So that's what we did with Stinky Cakes. We just made diaper giving fun. And then with Standout Truck, that started because I wrote a book called Launch and Stand Out, and I sell it in the Standout Truck store. I started getting a lot of people booking me to come and speak about marketing. And then I had a lot of people booking me as a consultant, and then I ended up having people booking me to actually do their marketing for them. And through that, I started buying a lot of digital screens across the country. And I just fell in love with the out-of-home space. Like, man, I love the fact of like owning billboard. I think that's a really cool space, cool way to advertise. And then I just decided to get my own screens. And then the crazy thing is, Standout Truck launched March 9th, 2020. And, it was like 3-4 days later, the whole country shut down, right? The whole world shut down, really. And if you think about it, to be someone in a traveling billboard company when everyone was being told not to travel, like we should have failed before we started. But, it all goes back to like having an incredible work ethic, right? And just like believing in what you do and finding other ways to solve problems for people. And like I said, like I go into tons of high schools and colleges, speak, and they book me to speak all the time. And so a lot of the kids that were having graduation celebrations, like I know those kids. I watched them from like 9th grade, now they're in 12th, about to go to, I seen them. I was like, no, we have to celebrate them. So then I just kind of like, I shifted. I like, what, I'm not going to focus on making money with my business. I'm going to just focus on celebrating the kids and giving them that moment with their family. So we turned Standout Truck into like a graduation celebration thing. And we did hundreds of graduation celebrations and just made it about giving kids and their family that moment. But like sometimes that being an entrepreneur boils down to that, like identifying that problem and figuring out a way to solve it. So, we didn't make too much money on the deal with the graduations, but it wasn't about that. It was about showing the kids in the community that we love them, we care for them. They put all that work in to graduate. They should be able to, celebrate with their families.
You were just touching on the fact of, having to kind of pivot sometimes, especially being an entrepreneur. And so I know that you have found much success, but with success comes a lot of challenges. So what are some of the hardships that you have faced personally along the way on your entrepreneur journey, and how have you been able to overcome them?
Well, so many, like, if and every day, any business owner, any entrepreneur will tell you every day there's some kind of challenge. But the cool thing about it, and the cool thing about having a true entrepreneurial mind is like, you don't really see challenges. You see like, it's not an obstacle, it's not a barrier. It's like, it's a new problem looking for you to solve it, right? So there's always something. The thing that keeps you in it is like, being able to leverage your network and having people around you that are much smarter than you, people that have been around you that's done more than you, people that are around you that match your goals and surpass your goals, and being able to tap into those people like, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. How'd you get past it? And being humble enough to take that advice, being humble enough to approach people. And I think for me, that's part of the reason why I love giving back so much too, because I know like just if I get stuck, like before Mike Kirich passed away, Yankee Candle Mike Kirich, like to be able to pick up the phone and call Mr. Carriage and be like, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. What do you think? And he always used to say, hey, if it were me, I would do X, Y, and Z.
Your book, Launch and Stand Out, which is a guide to starting and growing a business. What piece of information or a lesson is in there that you would have loved a young Mike to know back in the day?
Like, if you want people to buy from you, like one of the things that I learned, like if they're confused, you lose. So keep everything simple, right? Keep everything and then just work and grind. And like, that book helped me come up with my personal motto, which is create dope stuff and stay sucker free. So dope means delivering others positive energy, right? So create something that's going to deliver people's positive energy and stay away from the people that are going to drain your positive energy. Once you start doing that, and then you just start creating stuff for people that love what you have to do or find extreme value in what you have to do, you would save so much time and energy trying to like please people that you can't please, and take the constructive criticism that comes from them, right? So like, if someone's in your tribe and they saying, yeah, but if you do X, Y, and Z, and they're not just being negative, you listen to that. Like I tell business owners all the time, like your 1-star reviews are where you're gonna learn. You know, just like in sports, my kids play sports, right? And I tell them all the time, bro, you're gonna learn more from a loss than a win. The win, you feel good. You're like, yeah, this is awesome. When you lose, you're like, oh, I could have did this, I could have did that, we could have did this, we could have did that. So 1-star reviews from people in your dope bucket, like I like to say, people that love what you have to do, learn from them, because all they really telling you is things they wish your company did. And you do those things. And that's a lot of times where like your innovative products and services going to come from, because you start one spot and then you hear the things people wish it did. And then you do put these things together and then you grow.
And that does it for this edition of Connecting Point. Remember, you can always find all of the stories that you saw in this episode, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and so much more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Our thanks to the town of Charlemont for hosting us today. And please be sure to join us again every week right here for more stories of the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. I'm Saidalis Bauer. Thanks for watching and take care.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Sunday on PBS, it's the season premiere of Miss Scarlet and the Duke on Masterpiece.
I am the only female detective in London.
Followed by the series premiere of Magpie Murders.
It's missing the last chapter. The answer's in the book.
And finally, the series premiere of Annika.
I'm a really good detective.
First, Miss Scarlet and the Duke, followed by Magpie Murders, and finally, Annika, all on Masterpiece.
Watch these new shows Sunday starting at 8 on NEPM.
This is the bottom of the harmony. This is the ground. Everything comes out of the ground.
Mingus is John Coltrane. Mingus is Kendrick Lamar.
He let you know what was in his heart. He let you know joy. He let you know great pain.
I thought my dad was a piano player. I had no idea he was one of the greatest bass players to ever live.
Let My Children Hear Mingus, Friday at 9 on NEPM.
I'm Molly Keegan.
And I'm Karen Curran.
Public media plays a unique role getting past the noise of today's world, bringing us stories about real life, reminding us of the strength, beauty, and resiliency of the human spirit. As financial planners, we know everyone has their own story.
That is why Curran and Keegan are proud sponsors of this year's NEPM Valley Voices Story Slam.
NEPM Kids Day is coming back. There will be games, live music, and free ice cream. Come say hi to Curious George and other PBS characters. Since it's right before Halloween, there's going to be a costume parade. If you want to, come in your Halloween costume. Court Square in Springfield, Saturday, October 22nd. Register your family at nepm.org/kidsday.
I have 3 children, Jack, Emma, and Marjorie. PBS Kids has been such a big part of our lives. We watch Daniel Tiger every day. Marjorie loves that episode when Prince Wednesday's cousin, Chrissy, is visiting, and Daniel notices Chrissy wears these leg braces.
She has braces just like me.
Getting the leg braces was difficult for Marjorie. Seeing Chrissy wear them just totally changed her mindset about it.
I feel like she was made just for me.
PBS Kids is such a value to our family.
You're watching New England Public Media on WGBY Springfield.
An American Experience.
The hostages are in our hands.
444 days that transfixed the world.
This was the first American foreign policy crisis televised live from start to stop.
It was like being a reporter with a camera crew at the French Revolution.
I said to myself, why am I a prisoner? Why me?
Taken hostage